Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today we are going to take a trip on the paranormal side. Before we do that, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch displayed directly under this video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. Now, everyone, let's take this walk on the paranormal side. Shall we? Today's first experience on the paranormal side. This is something I really don't talk about. My husband is the only person that knows the entire event. I'm going to paraphrase to save time. About 4 years ago, we moved from Florida to North Carolina. My husband is in the towing industry. He went on assignment to Maryland for 6 months. While in our home alone with my dogs, I had a major shadow person infestation. My husband and I talked at night all of the time, and he even saw it on the video chat more than once. I felt like I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. I didn't sleep at night, so I turned every light on in the house. My husband is Catholic and was very involved as an altar boy from the ages of 6 till 19. So much so he had a free ride all through a Catholic high school. This plays into the story later. Seeing these shadow things nightly had me to the point that I felt like it was possibly the beginning stages of a full-on possession in the making. When I say I saw them, it started out of the corner of my eye, and over the time, I could look at them straight on. So it wasn't my mind playing tricks on me, something in my eye, lighting, and my husband saw it twice while on video chat with me. My whole personality changed. I looked like I had an illness that was eating me alive from the inside out. My husband would come home every few weeks for 2 days. When he was home, the activity was virtually non-existent, with the exception of hearing noises that we could not explain. He wrote those off as noises from the woods near our home, but when he was gone, I would call him on the brink of panic. I wasn't afraid that it was going to hurt me physically as much as the emotional, mental, and physical drain it put on me. We discussed trying to take possession of me. He reached out to his Catholic priest, who explained the stages of demonic possession. He told me the first thing that seemed to happen was breaking down of a person mentally and physically. We were there. This all came to an end one night when I was alone and I freaked out completely. I had holy water in my home that was blessed by the Pope from the Vatican. I grabbed the holy water and walked around the house and was just spraying everything. At the same time, I was screaming, telling it that it was not welcome, that I wasn't going to be afraid anymore, and if it was coming to get me, then make it happen. I had broken. I could no longer live like this. The next morning, the whole house felt different. That night, I no longer saw the shadow figures in my home. It was an almost eerie quiet with a whole new sense of calm. We don't talk about this ever. I can't even read or watch things having to do with shadow people because of my experience. I'm not saying in the lightest terms, but I absolutely believe I have a form of PTSD from the events that transpired. We don't watch shows with it. We don't discuss it. Fast forward a little over 4 years. We now live in a 3-story home. Our bedroom is at the top floor. It is a very quiet country neighborhood, meaning at 9 p.m. everything shuts down. My neighbors don't have lighting on their homes other than their front porch. We don't have parties here or the police. It's been very quiet. and dark at night. We were sitting in bed on the top third-story floor watching TV, and in my hallway I saw like a flashlight flashing around the walls. It was very fast, but I sat there and stared at it. So it wasn't just like a blink of the eye. It was like somebody outside was shining a flashlight on the house, and it popped through the window. This is on the third floor. So if it were a car light, it wouldn't reach the top level. It was only us in the house that we knew of. I looked at my husband and I said, "Do you see the flashlight in the hallway just now?" To which he responded no and started to stare. He jumped out of bed and got his gun and his flashlight and started to enter the hallway, thinking somebody may have broken in. He goes through the whole top floor, checks behind the curtain in the bedroom or bathroom, turns on all the lights and finds nothing. We even looked outside on both sides of the house to see if maybe something happened and somebody was out there with a flashlight. Nothing. Dark, black silence like every other normal night. He was in full-on protection mode at this point. I told him maybe it was a car, maybe it was a reflection off the TV, and a couple of other things that could have caused it to calm down. He sat down on the bed, and I watched his frozen face as he stared blankly and fixated on the hall. He said, "Natalie, I'm watching a shadow go back and forth across our hallway. There's no light behind it, and I cannot see through it to the window." He said it crossed 3 or 4 times. He sat there with the blank expression. In 24 years, I've never seen. In 24 years. He jumps up and turns on every single light again. He's clearly freaked out. I was starting to freak out as well. The minute he mentioned shadow person, I thought they were back in my life again. I haven't felt this type of fear, panic in quite some time now. I feel like I'm on super high alert today as I'm sharing this. I don't feel safe going back to my bedroom. I can't relive this event. I looked at him and said, "We don't talk about these things. We're not talking about what happened. And don't say the word shadow around me ever again in your life. You can think it, but don't say it." After a while, he calmed down enough to lie down and go to sleep. I haven't slept yet. I just had to get this off of my chest so I could breathe. I'm already dreading tonight and going to bed. I can't have what I went through for 6 months back in my life again. Thank you for letting me share my story. I'm not necessarily looking for advice or anything. I'm just sitting here at complete loss. I keep wondering how these things are happening over and over again. Has it just been dormant and now it's coming back? Is there something triggering these events? There's no doubt about what he saw last night. He had a stare and never looked away while he was describing what he was seeing. I just don't know what to do or think. Also, we have 4 dogs. None of them reacted to anything. They're dachshunds, and they bark if a leaf blows by in Georgia. They lied down and chewed their toys like normal. They didn't hear or see anything until my husband got up and they followed him. Today's second experience on the paranormal side. This happened back in 2009 or 10. So I would have been 11 or 12. It was around my birthday, so in the fall, and a Saturday, as I was home from school. A few years prior to this, my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and had to be put in a nursing home. Because of this, we took her dog Pip. She was an older terrier that my grandma had rescued years ago. We had 2 other dogs at the time, a German Shepherd and a Golden Retriever named Carly. The day this happened, I was inside my house reading in the living room. My dad and brother were home while my mom was at work. Unbeknownst to us, both Carly and Pip had escaped the yard and were wandering in the road. I remember sitting inside when suddenly I heard my brother yell, "Pip!" from outside. I was confused as to what was going on, so I went outside to see why my brother was shouting. I went out the side door, but I couldn't see my brother in the parking area. I thought maybe he was in the driveway, so I stepped to the middle of the parking area and looked down towards the road, which was blocked from view of the door by the lines of trees. As I walked a few steps to look down the driveway, a group of motorcycles went past. At that time, I didn't think anything. It was the weekend, and we'd often get people out enjoying the nice weather. Down in the road at the end of the driveway was our dog Carly. Immediately, I started walking down the driveway to go catch her. Now, I don't remember what happened next, as my brain seemed to have blocked it out, but next thing I know, I was running back up the driveway and running into the house yelling, "There's something that looks like Pip in the road." Even now, I don't have memories of finding her body, which I am immensely grateful for. My dad came running out and down the driveway, with my fears were confirmed. A short time later, the motorcyclist returned. He was devastated about what had happened. He said that he was going past and he had seen our big dog Carly, who he swerved to avoid, but hadn't seen Pip in the time. The rest of the day was a blur. My mom came home from work, was inconsolable about what happened to her mom's dog. It wasn't until later, as I was processing what had happened, that I realized something was off. It was my brother's voice I heard yelling Pip's name from outside. If I hadn't heard him, I never would have gone out in the first place. But when I went looking for him, he wasn't there. I was too distracted by everything that happened afterward to really consider where my brother had gone. I think it was the next day that I had asked him where he had been shortly after Pip was hit. He told me that he had been in his room watching television. Even now, years later, he still confirms that he never was outside, and that he had been watching television when it all went down. He even remembers what was on TV. I have no idea who it was that yelled Pip's name that day. My mom was at work, and both my dad and brother were inside. I'm certain that it was my brother's voice that I had heard, and it just seems too big of a coincidence that I was called outside moments before her death. This is the only time I've had something happen to me that I cannot explain, and it still makes me question things to this day. Today's third experience on the paranormal side. My mom and I went on a trip last week, and I'm still thinking about what had happened. We were walking down one of the streets in the city when I saw a small store that I felt I just had to go into. There was a sign on the front that said, "Home of Judith, the Haunted Doll," in a really small font on the window. And I was like, laughing my butt off, dope. I dragged my bewildered mom into the store, which was full of kid stuff and weird collectibles. I started making small talk with the owner, and she said she had gotten good vibes from me and my mom. She explained that the room in the back was filled with dolls that held spirits. And she said she could hear them, and they had bridged the gap between the spirit world and the physical world. Me versus spiritual mom, and I said, "Yes, please show us." She opened the door, and it was a room of dolls with green lights coming from the ceiling. She asked me if I knew which one was Judith, and I instinctively pointed to the one in the Gone with the Wind crib. She said, "You can tell what's different about her." Something in me just said her hair, and was right. Judith's hair came from a deceased child, and my mom and I just made a WTF eye contact. Then the woman explained her connections with the dolls and let us listen to EVPs captured from a ghost hunting dude. I forgot his name. It was legit stuff. Then she mentions to the devices on her altar at the front of the room. She explained what they did, measured electromagnetic energy, and demonstrated that they only started beeping when something was directly on it. She called to the spirits of the dolls and of St. Michael, asking him to keep us in love and light, and said that the spirits were here. She asked them to make the toys go off, and they did. They really did. And when she asked the dolls to, but What really sold it was when she used the twist flashlight. If you've ever seen BuzzFeed Unsolved, it's the same thing Ryan and Shane do at the Sally house. Then she grabs my hand. On it was my ring, which I wear everywhere, and it's very important to me. She said, "Oh, Garnet, it's gorgeous." It belonged to somebody who loved. No? She's in the spirit world, isn't she? It was a ring that my dead grandmother owned. This is what followed. The woman turns to my mother. "I'm sorry for your loss. My mom." "How are you sure it was my mother's?" Woman. "How? I felt it, of course." Looks at me. "Would you like to ask a question?" We said, "Of course," and she propped a flashlight up and called my grandmother from the spirit world and asked her to turn the flashlight on in 3 seconds, and that she would count. It immediately turned on. She said, "Okay, you can turn it off now. 1, 2, it turned off again. Very on point for my yaya. I could just picture her saying, "Stop counting off. I'm not a child." My mom stepped forward and asked questions and said things she wanted her to know. I did the same. The woman gave us a message using actual initials and countries, like very specific. After we said goodbye, the woman hugged us and said she felt a bond and wanted to see us again. Today's fourth experience on the paranormal side. So I'll start with the event that happened in the last year that started this chain of strange occurrences. I've been telling the details and stories to my friends, some who believe me, some who don't, and some who didn't believe me until I showed them videos and proof of the events. One friend recommended me sharing this. So I woke up at 10 in the morning in my New York apartment. I pick up my phone, open it, do the usual, check the messages, emails, Instagram, and I see I have a missed call from my best friend from home I haven't talked to in a while. I decide to get up, make some coffee while I call him back. So I exit my room directly. I'm out in the hallway that leads to my living room. My rented apartment is a railroad apartment. Those who live in Astoria and Queens may be familiar with its layout. For others who are not, it basically means the rooms are laid out like carriages would be on a train, one room after in a straight line. My room is at the front of the building. The next bedroom is occupied by my roommates. The room after that is a tiny box room, then the living room, and lastly the kitchen, which is at the back of the apartment adjacent to the bathroom. I'm in the kitchen brewing some coffee. I look at my phone and realize it's nearly dead, so I go back to my bedroom and get my charger. I open the living room door and walk down the hallway. Now, as I'm approaching the door, I can hear murmurs of people chatting. I'm not sure where it's coming from, but it strangely sounds like my room. The apartment next door to us is vacant and used for storage and clutter by the landlord. The voices are very monotone, not whispers, but not loud enough to make anything out clearly. I walk closer to the door, and as soon as I reach, the murmurs stop. I think that's weird, but I'm not thinking there's anyone in my room. That's the last thing on my mind. It's like 10:20 in the morning, and I had just left it. I open the door, walk over to my bed, and crawl across to where my charger is connected to an extension lead on my bed. I notice the room feels static-like when a TV is turned on with no sound, so much so that I turn and check if I accidentally had put a knee or my hand on the remote and switched it, but it was off. So this is the part, and I'll try to explain as best as I can. I look at my phone because I know it's low, and I don't want it switching off. I plug it in and sit against the headboard. I switch on my phone. I'm looking at the screen, resting my haunches on my legs. Out of the corner of my eye, I can see something dark in the corner of my room. Between the open door and the wall, I'm in instant fear. I'm frozen. I know there's 100% chance someone in my room. I don't want to move my head, so I realize I know it's there. I can feel it. I can't make it out, but it's dark. Its hands are pressed against the wall. I can't see its face, but I can feel it staring at me. I start to think, to hope, that my eyes are playing tricks, but the dead silence, I hear its body brush against the wall. I close my eyes and hope it disappears. That I'll never tell anyone if it does. That we have a telepathic connection and an understanding, but when I open them, it's still there. This is the closest I've had to sleep paralysis while being wide awake. I want to scream out to my roommate to help me. I'm frozen in fear. I try to convince myself I can scream. Help pops in my head, the word help. I don't know why, but I think I can scream that word. I stop thinking and I scream, help! As soon as my mouth opens, the figure bolts around and out the door at what I can only describe as cat speed. I can hear the footsteps stop. It hasn't gone down the stairs yet. It's still in the hallway. I call my roommate's name. I can hear him get up and I feel relieved. He rushes in and asks what's wrong. I told him there was something or someone in my room. That he's in the hall. He doesn't ask. I know he assumes it's an intruder. He asks me if he's big in a whisper. I tell him I'm not sure. He tells me to come with him, but I tell him to lock the door. He decides to investigate. He starts to tiptoe so he can peek down the hall. Eventually, he gets a clear view and tells me he's gone. I know I didn't hear him go down the stairs. You would have heard it on the old wooden steps. He ventures down and checks the door to the living room. It's locked. The next door apartment doors, they're locked. He comes back in and tells me it's gone. He must be. Tonight's final experience on the paranormal side. A little background about myself and my roommate. We are both practicing Christian, so I do believe in the spiritual side, demons and such, but I had never had any encounters I deemed supernatural per se. That all changed for me 3 years ago. We were living in a small apartment at the time where me and my roommate, let's call him Joe for now, lived at the time. His girlfriend had just gotten back from a mission trip to Haiti and brought home a gift for him. This gift is a crudely carved wooden elephant that she had gifted from a Haitian child. This thing was freaky, creepy, just gave off an eerie vibe by looking at it. Clearly hand carved, but not with the best craftsmanship. It was very unsettling to look at. However, Joe, being a good boyfriend, graciously accepted the gift. I, somewhat jokingly, but also seriously, expressed how I didn't like the mojo surrounding the thing. He basically explained that he thought it was weird, but it was a gift, so he's going to keep it. And keep it in our room. Later that night, I received the usual text from my neighbor who lived across the hall. We were friends, but never really texted, so this struck me as odd. Are you okay? I was in the living room watching a movie at the time, and I said, yeah, just relaxing, watching TV. Met with the response, oh, just pulled in and thought I saw you in your room pacing back and forth. My heart dropped. I was home alone. And I immediately ran into the room to find nothing but stillness. I made a glance at the wood-carved monstrosity, which almost felt as if it was staring back at me through the closed door. Now unsettled, but not completely startled. A couple hours later, it was time for bed. By this time, my roommate had already returned. I told him about the text, but he meanly brushed it off. I never had been a great sleeper, so this experience didn't help me get into a rest state. However, eventually my mind drifted asleep. This sleep didn't last long, though. A feeling I had never felt before came over me. My eyes felt as if they were glued open, and I didn't even notice myself blinking. My body was strapped to the bed, not able to move any appendage. All I had control over were my eyes. I immediately looked to my roommate across the room who was dead asleep. With all of my might, I tried to let out anything out of my mouth, but not even a whimper. My eyes then looked to the foot of my bed to see a sight that gripped me with curling fear. An imposing outline of nothing but black, so black it stood out amongst the rest of the darkness. There was no face, no true shape, just a vague structure of a humanoid creature that looked as if it was a void, absorbing darkness and growing even blacker by the second. I moved my eyes up to try to avoid the thing, but It was so tall, it was hard not to see it. Then it felt as if my chest was crushing. Looking down to the pressure on my chest, it now appeared the thing was coming over me. It wasn't crawling over my bed, more as if it was levitating closer and closer, until I was forced to stare at nothing but the void before me. What I presumed to be the creature's face, there was no emotion, noise, nothing, just darkness. And when I think back to this, that's what churns my stomach. The lack of anything is something I had ever experienced. I don't remember the thing leaving or me falling asleep. I just woke up in the morning, naturally thinking my mind had just dreamt up a terrible nightmare. However, when I looked to the floor of the room, I saw that wood-carved creature had fallen off the shelf and rolled a solid 3 feet to the foot of my bed. I felt ill from the fear. I immediately decided the events were connected. I have never suffered from sleep paralysis before or after this event. We got rid of the wooden elephant, then blessed each room of the house, and had no more issues until we moved out. I truly believe this wooden carved object had something attached to it. I'm not very informed on the subject, but it was of Haitian descent, so my first thought was voodoo. This is only ever encounter of this type. This is a bonus experience, and it's very disturbing. This happened around 7 years ago. I was 12 years of age. I'm now 19. I was hunting squirrels in the summer with my dog Ruby for 3 hours, and got a decent amount of squirrel when I was done. Then my dog heard something large moving about 30 yards in the woods. I turned around and heard the same sound she was hearing. I grabbed my small rifle and went out to check what was making the noise. My dog Ruby darted toward the noise while I was trying to call her back. I followed her to where the noise was made, but I didn't find Ruby either. I was yelling her name over and over again. I heard a painful yelp from her 50 yards ahead of me. I ran as fast as I could. I found Ruby. She was completely mutilated. Her leg was 5 feet away from her body. I could see her large intestine, ribs were broken, and missing her lower jaw. To be honest, I bawled my eyes out. My Ruby was dead. While I was crying, I noticed footprints leading away from her body deeper into the woods. When I looked at the tracks leading away, they looked like a wolf print, but they were at least the size of my hand. I didn't know what killed my dog Ruby, but after that incident, I wanted revenge. I am still looking for that same wolf. And so far, I've been seeing the same tracks in the same area where it killed Ruby. If I find this wolf, it's going on my wall. That's my scary and sad encounter. If I didn't have Ruby when I was squirrel hunting, she would have not have gotten injured or killed. I'm lucky I'm still alive. She sacrificed her life to protect me. I still miss her to this day. Love you, Ruby. Hashtag show some love. Whatever attacked this person's dog is a dogman and not a wolf, and I'm reaching out to them immediately after this upload. I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Please practice kindness. May the Great Spirit watch over us all, and may He guide us down that path that we call life. Until tomorrow, my friends, until tomorrow.